So here is how to remove a vintage crankset the proper way. This is a little Suntour Sprint crankset. This works for just about any English or Japanese crankset. Some old French stuff's a little different. They have different thread sizes. You need special tools. Otherwise, they're pretty similar. Italian stuff has a different bottom bracket where both cups are threaded in righty-tighty. French stuff has slightly different threads, but it's all the same tools and they come out the same. We're going to start by removing the pedals. So the best way to remove pedals is to find your 15mm pedal wrench. Some more modern pedals will also have an Allen in the back or only have an Allen in the back. I like to find the pedal wrench and find a good leverage point. So this is pretty leveragey. I can hold the non-drive crank. I can even grab the frame with my hand while holding the crank. And now I can push down and have the extra leverage on this side holding it tight. You do want to be careful of the chain rings. It's very easy to punch the chain rings when you're trying to get the pedals off or get the crank bolts out. And it's not going to move it, it's not going to move it up, and then it's going to move. So be careful. You really start pushing and then you punch those rings. I have scraped all the skin off my knuckles a few times. Now we can just go around and around, sort of holding the pedal straight and moving the cranks. Same thing as just unscrew the pedal, but easier. The pedal will fall right off. And the same thing the other side. The non-drive side, the pedal threads are reversed. So you actually have to go righty-loosey. Let's see if we can try pushing down my left hand and lifting up with the tool. Yay, that worked. And now you can come around, you can move the frame around, change the angles, and do whatever you can to find a spot with the most leverage. Bye-bye, pedal. I'm also just going to ditch this old chain. Hey, there we go. The next step is to remove the dust caps. This one's already missing dust caps, so don't have to worry about it. If it had a dust cap with a little flat slot, you can use the side of a cone wrench. It's like a thin wrench, a nice big round side. It'll fit right into that slot. You can turn it. Use a screwdriver, usually just chew the slot up. Sometimes they have a little double pin spanner, and you have to get like a little adjustable pin spanner. It's got two little pins, so you can find different size holes. This is an old vintage Park one. Pretty cool. Park crank puller. You can use any old crank puller or any 14mm socket for this style. They do make an 8mm Allen head style, which uses an 8mm Allen head. So the same thing, try and find a good leveragey spot where you can push down, lift up, not punch these chain rings. Ow! And I just absolutely punched the chain rings and cut myself and I'm bleeding. So a better leveragey spot would be to come to the other side, just like we did the pedal. So we can hold this side and push down more carefully and loosen it up without getting blood everywhere. I'm just going to hold the bolt with my finger and spin the cranks and let the bolt spin right out. Most of the way out. It's a little tight. So this is an old style crank bolt with a washer. Nothing fancy. Some modern ones have the washer built in, and like I said, and the other ones are 8mm Allen style. Do the other side. Try it again like this. Hold this crank. Oh! The other side has a dust cap. I'll flip the bike around so you can see it. Looky, looky. Little teeny old Suntour dust cap. It's a little bit mangled, but looks like it just takes a little Allen wrench. So we're going to try and see if we can remove it with just this Allen wrench. Hopefully it's not too mangled. I'm really pushing it in there, making sure I have as much purchase as possible, because the head's a little bit mangled. Hey, alright, and it just unthreaded right out. You can take a close-up look at that. It's a nice old metal cap. Same thing on this side. I'm going to grab for some leverage. These nice bloody cranks. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Ah! pretty tight. Probably could have got a much leveragey angle. Pulling up, it's hard to get leverage. I can do this because I'm kind of strong, but for most people it's going to be way easier to go down to get leverage. You can really push and put your whole body and shoulder into it. A matter of leverage will really make your life easier. And for some mechanics, some smaller people, some petiter people, you really have to learn how to master leverage if you want to do cranks, and especially bottom brackets. Same thing, just a real old style, kind of campy style bolt. Next we're going to use this Park crank extractor tool. It's a 2-piece tool. I recommend threading this bit all the way off. If you don't have it threaded off enough, the handle of the tool will bottom out on the bottom bracket. These won't get tight enough and you will destroy your cranks. You'll pull the threads right out. Look in here, you can see there's still several millimeters of the square taper before it hits the spindle. So these cranks probably been on and off a few times, but are still fine, good to use. Probably get several more pressings out of them. I'm going to thread this tool in. And then we always, no matter what anyone tells you ever for any reason, we always use an adjustable wrench or the correct size, whatever it may be. I have no idea, never actually even checked. Just give this tool a little snug. I want to make sure it's in those threads. Sometimes it'll feel like it's all the way in. And you put a tool on it, you can get this to turn like 3 more threads. I've definitely seen people destroy their cranks by not having this in tight. You get it loose, not all the way in, you gotta pull it off. It's a lot of force required to get this tool all the way in. And this aluminum of the cranks has soft threads. You can definitely just tear the threads out instead of pulling the crank off. So I threaded the handle in. Now it's tight. We're gonna do the same thing with leverage. Push down both ways because it's real tight. Oh man, so tight. Ugh. Still tight, but it's definitely coming. Now the crank gets sucked right off that little square taper. Use the wrench again to crack the tool loose. And you can see in here, you can see the square taper. You can see these threads, the tool threads into. Whenever you buy a used set of cranks, you always look at this taper to make sure there's still several millimeters in here. The spindle hasn't gone all the way through the square taper. Make sure these threads are still in good shape so you can get the cranks off if you install them. Really look at that square taper. I've seen them rounded out, ovaled out, beat up, and totally blown out where you can just press this all the way on too far. But these are nice. This non-drive one's pretty nice. It's a very faded logo. A little bit of chewiness, a little bit of heel rub in the ano, but not too bad. Good rider set. Do the same thing. I'm going to unthread this tool. And you do always want to make sure that you got the washer out, you got all the little bits and parts of the bolt out. There's not too much grime or chunk in these threads. These threads aren't all pulled out or destroyed. See, this one's a little tight. You always start it by hand. You want to make sure these threads start. You don't go in crooked. Now, even if I use the tool this early, I'm doing real gentle to make sure it's going in with the threads the way it's supposed to. And not spinning around, not going in cross-threaded, not destroying the threads. It's real tight right off the bat. You pull it back out, start over. A little cinched up. Try and get this tool going. Alright. Now since we pulled the other crank, there's not really a lot to hold on to here, so I'm going to try from here. Try not to make myself bleed again on these chain rings. Try. Pushing down for leverage with both hands. Resting on the frame. And off. Same thing, gonna use this wrench just to get the tool loose. Cool. So the bottom bracket, the first step is to get this lock ring off, and then we'll use the adjustable pin spanner to get that cup out. And I'm just going to choose a random bottom bracket tool. You can see I have several because they all fit slightly different. So this would be righty-tighty, which we're not going to do, so we're going to go lefty-loosey. The drive side is reverse thread, but this is the non-drive. And be really careful, it's a very thin tool and a very thin lock ring. Putting this into my shoulder. And lefty-loosey. And the other side of this tool is for the other cup. And the lock ring is off. Nice, boring old plain lock ring. It says Suntour. It's chrome. Chrome looks good. It's cool. Got the adjustable pin spanner. Sometimes a non-adjustable pin spanner will be the right size. But I like this tool. It's harder to use because it's always trying to move on you, but it's cool because it fits everything. I'm just putting it in these little pinholes and turning it. Just unthreading this cup. Real tight. I'm not going to take it all the way out. It's going to get most of the way out. So I'm going to work on the other side with all the stuff flopping around and moving. This side's quite a bit trickier. This old dirty cup just has these two thin wrench flats. And it's reverse thread. I have 3 of these tools for this bottom bracket cup, and all 3 of them are slightly different size. So I'm going to check and see what fits. So this one's super loose, so maybe. It's a newer Park one. Also super loose. A real old vintagey Park one. And it is too tight. It's been too tight for everything I've ever tried it on. It's hilarious. Let's go ahead and use this old chrome this old chrome Sagino one because it's fun to hit old chrome tools. So this is reverse thread. This is going to be righty-loosey. So I'm going to try and find an angle where I can come and hit it with a hammer. This does not seem like that angle. This really might work. Maybe this isn't terrible and ridiculous, but it kind of looks like it. I'm going to give it a try. So we're going righty-loosey, so I need to hit without leverage very awkwardly. Kind of hold this tool in place. Falls off, put it back in place. It either fell off or it knocked it loose. We'll find out. And it definitely didn't knock it loose. See if we can find a better angle. Okay, this is up real high, but still slightly better angle. And I think that still did not do it. Ugh. This is getting a little bit weird. Oh, but it definitely knocked it free enough. And that's great. So now we can thread this guy out. Quite awkwardly. Alright, so this is the bottom bracket threaded out of the frame. It's got little ball bearings and a little cage retainer. It's got a little old dust seal and the axle. Ooh, Suntour. So this is the non-drive side. Comes out, so the axle is red from the rider's perspective. If you're looking down, you can see it. And it's important to tell because axles are different lengths from the bearing surface to the end of the spindle. So if you want to replace this with like a modern sealed cartridge, if this is dead or something, you got to measure not just the overall length, 113, 118, whatever it is. You also need to know the jut, which is the distance from the outside of the cup to the end of the spindle. Sometimes you get all vintage bottom brackets of 118, you get a modern 118, and it puts your chain line totally crazy. So you actually have to measure this and realize, oh, actually 107 would put the chain line in the same spot. It's at the same jut. So you have to use a totally different size bottom bracket. Bottom brackets are also, this one's labeled 68 millimeters, so that's a thing. They made this width different. Most old bikes are 68. Italian stuff is 70. Some weird mountain bikes are 73. So that's important to know too. Get the correct threading, French, Italian, English. Get the correct width. Lots to know. Everyone's asked me real basic, simple questions. Why isn't everything interchangeable? Or what's interchangeable? What's this? What's that? And it's like, well, there's just a lot of different standards, and some of them last a long time. Some didn't. Some other companies and countries adopted certain standards. Like early Japanese bikes had a bunch of half English standards, half French standards, and slowly changed and changed and changed to English over the years. Or English changed to Japanese. Or Italian still does their own thing no matter what. But it's very similar. It's hard to just answer what's interchangeable because so much stuff is and so much stuff is not. It's a pretty simple video on how to pull off a vintage crankset, get the bottom bracket out. There's one other thing, which is this little plastic underguide. Some of them have the underguides welded on the top, welded on the bottom. This one's plastic. Usually the screw and the plastic ones stick in too far to where you can't get the bottom bracket out because it's hitting the plastic little water shield. So usually you have to unscrew this and remove it first. In this case we didn't, which is very rare. But we're going to do it anyways, because why not? And it's just a little curved piece of plastic that fits your bike just to be a cable guide. These cables don't come loose and pop out everywhere. I make so many videos talking about not dropping hardware and putting everything back, not losing it. I just dropped this screw and I cannot find it. It just disappeared into nothing. Maybe we'll find it. We'll see. So that is our video on pulling vintage cranks and bottom brackets. Thanks for watching.